Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Diane at Faithart Design Studio, and we are really making good progress in our Pink Parfait Hidden Spine Journal. And we are on, let's see, the fifth? Yeah, we're on the fifth verse of our 10 Ways to Love Bible study. We're in the middle of the second signature, and I just wanted to I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what is 10 Ways to Love all about. I wrote this Bible study last year because I found so much of our culture has a misperception about what love really is. The things that they say to other people and how most people love each other is not of God. And so as I started to just think that through and identified some verses that talk about how we are to love, I decided this really does need to be a Bible study. And so when you think about it, if you want to learn how to love others well, guess who you first have to love? And in secular society would say you need to love yourself. Guess what? No, that's not it. The answer is we must first love God. Then, only then, can we correctly, effectively, and even sufficiently love somebody else, because God is love. And we are to represent God's love in the world. And so the other thing is biblical love does not start with an emotion or feeling. It starts with a decision. Because love is a choice. It is a decision. When we choose that, then we do acts of love. And this 10 Ways to Love list is giving you exactly what God says. This is how we are to love others. So the one we're talking about today is Proverbs 11:25. Give without sparing. So what actually is the verse? And so if I look on my card, the verse is, a generous person will prosper, and whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So the point here is that God says to us, you need to be giving and loving and caring about other people. You will get refreshed just because you'll feel so good because you're helping other people, because that's what God calls us to do. So that's what that verse is about. Where I started is I took two of the cards again. We did that a couple verses ago. And I pulled up the information about what does Proverbs 11:25 mean, because it emphasizes the principle of reciprocity, where giving generously leads to receiving blessings and a fulfilling life. So generosity is a blessing. It's a generous soul is not only in material possessions, but in spirit and kindness. That's what I want to be. I want to have people say, I have a generous soul. And there's the reciprocal nature of giving. It's actually beyond financial gain. Giving in God's world and God's ideas has nothing to do with money. It's not, well, I'm going to give to you so I get paid a lot of money. That's not what we're talking about. It's talking about the spiritual and emotional rewards that we get of having a generous life. And that's a sense of fulfillment. And then God's blessing, he blesses people who are generous. And the practical application is you can be generous from, maybe you are a giving person financially, you have the money to do that. But you know what? Offering kindness, compassion, and support to those in need is just as important as the money. So I, glued my little things on there. I used a piece of washi tape, and then I just somewhat glued it on there so it's, a little flip out. The next piece that I want to put in here is something that I made over in my Soulful Spaces, and I just thought it would be so perfect because the next list of information that I gathered, and now, of course, look, I just cut it all up. So, okay, here we go. Here it is. I got, I think this is from Got Questions. What's the true meaning of generosity? Well, first of all, let's look at what generosity actually means. So I went into the Webster's 1828 dictionary, which I love the best. I'm going to stick this in there too. The quality, generosity is a quality of being generous, having liberality in principle, a disposition to give liberally or to bestow favors. And it's a quality of the heart or mind opposed to meanness or parsimony. Of course, nobody uses that word anymore. But anyway, okay, it's a nobleness of soul. It's a magnanimity, right? This is the primary sense, but now very little, it's not used in that way. So we looked that up, and so it's a core. It's the willingness to give freely, often beyond what's expected. And here's the most important thing. What's the little thing to remember? Give without sparing. Okay, so you need to give as much as God calls you to give. And you cannot expect anything in return. Because if you think, well, if I'm nice to them, then they'll be nice to me, then you're not generous. That has nothing to do with it. It involves acts of kindness, compassion, selflessness. We should share our time, our attention, and our emotional support. And so here's the key aspects. Well, there was 5 listed, okay? And so I thought, well, there's 5 things. What if we made like word tags, I guess I'm gonna call them. So what I did was I printed that and then I cut them out and I took my tags that are in the kit and I laid them this way, cut the top. Remember, I'm telling you, use these little pieces of gorgeous little papers. Cut the tags off if you don't want to use it as a tag. So that's what I did. So I've got 5 of these now, and I deliberately left space at the top because what I want to do is I want to put in a, oh, of course, here we go. Not a Brad. I could put a Brad. No, what do I want to put in there? Yes, these. Okay, yes. Oh, when you're 73 some days. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, I want to put one of those in each one and maybe put dangles. And then I thought, well, where are we going to put those? Okay, so that brought to mind something that I made. And let's see, did I leave it out? Yeah, I made this a while ago. And this is in my Soulful Spaces. The link is in the description playlist. And it was from Treasure Books, who I've talked to you a lot about. Natasha from Treasure Books. She is wonderful. She posts 1 video a week. What does she have? Like 300,000 followers. So if you want to get into the nitty gritty, and she doesn't use any digitals. Everything she uses is real junk. And she's very creative. Some of the things she does, I would never do, but I like watching her. Anyway, she made this really cool video all about 25 projects from 1 book. And so she decided she was going to use every page in that book. And that's what her video was all about. Well, as I said in my video, and I say to you all the time, I watch all the other crafters and I go, that's a great idea. And then the next thing that I always say is, well, how's Diane going to make that about faith? So what I decided to do was, well, that's a great idea to use book pages, but let's use books that have a faith component. So that's what I did. So I'm going to show you how to make this. It's really, really simple. And then what we're going to do is, as I thought about, we're going to stick all these in these pockets, right? That's what we're going to do. So we're going to make this. Let me show you how quickly it is. First of all, you have to have the right book, as I said. Now I have this book sitting here because I wanted to show it to you. I picked this up from a resale shop, probably for 50 cents, to be honest. It looks like a brand new book. It's cool. The pages were cream colored. And it's the Family Book of Christian Values. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of my pages, anything I do with book pages, I get out of here. Because there's always Bible verses and this is all about Christian values. So this is a great book. So get yourself a book like this. You just need 1 of them. You don't need 5. Get 1. Look, I've ripped so much out and I still have like 80% of the book is left. So let's set that aside. So what we're going to do, I picked a whole bunch of papers. I ripped more pages out of the book. And I decided what we need is, I took a piece of scrapbook paper and I attached the front to the paper on the back. So I went into my Pink Parfait and Sunshine Serenity kit, and I had printed this piece on cardstock, which is cool. So we're going to use this as our backing. So I'm going to flip that over. And then here's the pages. And the first one, you're going to put right there. Now, if I want to, and I'm going to trim off the gutter on both of these pages. And what I then ended up doing, so look, let me go backwards. Look, I have 3 pages, right? I got 3 pages out of that book. So before I trim the gutters, I wanted to show you what I'm going to do. You're going to set that one at the very bottom, right? And then I love the word forgiveness, and so I folded it right above the forgiveness. That's where our pocket's going to be. So there's going to be a pocket on the top, a pocket here. And then this one, I love this, an act of the will. Because what are we talking about? Give without sparing. And that is all about, as we just said, choosing to love, making love a decision. I'm going to fold that right above there. Okay, and that makes that a little bit too long. Now, if you line it up, I guess that, no, it won't work. Because this pocket has to be, yeah, it's not going to work that way. This is going to be a lower pocket because we're going to have to, it has to end on the bottom, right? So this is what I'm thinking. This is what it looks like so far, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my little trimmer and we're going to trim this to make it straight. Then we're going to line all three up together and then we'll trim it so that it is the same size on all 3 pages. There we go. Okay, so there's the first one. So now we're all straight there. So I have a lower pocket, a higher pocket. Now, I could bring this down if I wanted to. It's just cutting some off the bottom. And how do I decide that? Well, let's line the bottoms back up. And then these are going to be sticking in there like this. And I'm probably going to put another tag with some other information in there. So do I want it? You know, I think I do. Let's go ahead and lower this just a bit. So we're going to start from there. Okay, I like that. I like that better. Okay, so now let me make a mark and then I'll trim that off like that. Let's do that. Let's trim that. And I will take it to my sewing machine and I will sew it, and you won't see that because I don't have a setup to have my camera near my sewing machine's on my other table. Way behind me. Okay, so there's what our pocket's going to look like. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now we're going to put it in here, and now we're going to trim this, the gutter on the sides. Oh, I just have enough space. Now the thing is, did you notice that this is folded? And there's a reason for that, because it gives it a nice edge. Okay, so I just was thinking about the top. For right now, let's go ahead and trim that side like that. And then we'll trim this side. And if you want to see more about this, as I said, I made a whole video. You're only seeing me make a little bit of this. And then we'll go forward. Oops, that has to go over just a tad, Diane. Okay, get those lined up. There we go. So this is going to be this is what I'm thinking it's going to be, right? I'm thinking that. Let's see. Okay, so if I put it to the side, because I do want this to show, I'm going to do a flap and put it in that. Now, the thing is we have to decide, is this too tall? And where am I putting it is where I want to figure out. I was thinking about flapping it onto, I think that would look nice. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. So is it too tall? No, it's not too tall, because remember, this is a tall book. Okay, so we're all straight. Now what I need to do is I need to trim this backing. Let me just put that on there straight. Do I have it on there straight, Diane? There's the one. Here's the next one, and then there's the third. Let's just make sure I have them all lined up. Okay. And then I'll trim this, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and then I will be back. I just had to share this as I was pulling this together. If you have never read this short story by Corrie ten Boom, I strongly suggest you do. Because if you want to find out how forgiveness is an act of your will, you need to read her story. And hopefully you know who Corrie ten Boom is. She was, her and her sisters were imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, and her dad and her sister. She's the only one that survived. And after her release, she traveled all over the world preaching the love of Christ and the joy of forgiveness. But one day her message of forgiveness was put to the ultimate test, as she tells in her book, Tramp for the Lord. Definitely have to read that book. Anyway, she was in Munich and she was sharing, her experience and how God brought her through and how she prayed and how she forgave everybody. And after she starts, she looked out into the crowd and she noticed this one person, and it was an older man, and he kind of came up to her. He was making way to see her, and all of a sudden it dawned on her that he was one of the guards at Ravensbrück, where she was in the concentration camp. And he put his hand out to her and says, "A fine message, Fraulein. How good it is to know that, as you say, all our sins are at the bottom of the sea." Well, she starts flipping out in her head. She's like, "Oh my gosh, this is the cruelest guard of all. This is him. I remembered him in his leather crop, swinging from his belt. I was face to face with one of my captors, and my blood seemed to freeze." I'm going to just read a couple more sentences, and then you need to go read this story. I'm going to try and find it. I'll put the link in the description. And he said, "Well, you mentioned Ravensbrück in your talk. I was a guard there." Then in her head, she's like, "He didn't even remember me." Of course not. Why would he? He says, "But since that time, I have become a Christian. I know that God has forgiven me for the cruel things I did there, and I would like to hear it from your lips as well, Fraulein. Will you forgive me?" And he put his hand out to her. See, this almost brings tears to my eyes. "And I stood there, I whose sins had again and again been forgiven. I could not forgive. Her sister Betsy had died in that place. How could he erase her slow, terrible death simply for the asking?" She said it could not have been many seconds that he stood there and his hand held out, but it seemed like hours to her as she wrestled with the most difficult thing she ever had to do. And she said she remembered that the message God forgives has a prior condition, that we forgive those who have injured us. If you do not forgive men their trespasses, Jesus said, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses. So you need to go read the rest of that story. Okay, I'm going to go to the sewing machine, but I just had to see why these books are so good. They're excellent. Let's wrap up number 5, which is Proverbs 11:25. I'm going to walk back from everything that I've just finished, and then we'll move on. So as I showed you, I took 2 of the messy cards and I washi taped them together and I added my information, and I've already read that to you. And then I put it on there, sticking over, not all the way into the edge. I thought it just looked better. Then I used one of the Pretty Pink Women and used some more boo-boo tape and some other fun little pieces of ephemera. I then took another smaller messy tag and put these really cool brads on them so that I could put the verse of what we're talking about. And 11:25 is, "Give without sparing. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." So that goes on there. And that's on that rice paper. And then on this, I didn't really want to cover up the gorgeous picture. This is a Georgia O'Keeffe. It was a book that my friend gave me. And I just love it's a big coffee table book. Remember those? And I just wanted the pictures in there in the pink one. So I used some of the words that I had typed up. Generosity is a blessing. I thought that just adds something to there. And we flip over here, and then here's our finish that we made the book page envelope, holder, pocket, that's what it is. Book page pocket. And I realized on this one, I made 4 pockets, 1, 2, 3, and then it could be there. And on this one, I only made 1, 2, because that's all I needed it for. And look how great my little word tags came out. Excuse me. And so I put, what is the true meaning of generosity? And generosity at its core is the willingness to give freely, beyond what's expected, and without expecting anything in return. And then key aspects of generosity. So we stick that in there and added my fun, this is the fabrics that I got out of that chindi rug. And then I added the 5 aspects. Fostering connection and community, because generosity helps build strong relationships and a compassionate society. It has an impact on the giver and the receiver. Being generous can bring joy, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose to both the giver and the recipient. Excuse me. And see, I put lots of fun. Made with love and some beads. While monetary gifts are a common form of generosity, it can also involve giving one's time, skills, or emotional support. So which way do you find yourself being generous? That's the good question, right? And generosity involves a desire to share and help others. I would say that's me. Often without expecting a reward or recognition. Yeah, I do this because God's called me to share his word, to teach others, and to teach myself, right? To make these beautiful junk journals, but infuse them with God's word. And then the last one was generosity is not simply a passive act. It involves a conscious decision to be helpful and supportive. So all 5 of those are in there with all my fun little charms. And what I did, this was a little tiny piece. Remember when I was making this, if you go back to the original video, and I learned this from Leslie at 507 Will Oz Journals, because she, in the past, I would have only used a paper that was the same on both sides of my fold. And I love that what she has taught me is make little tiny pieces, right? So on one side can be short or narrow, I should say, and the other side can be wider. And so that's what I did with these really cool papers. So that little piece was there, and I just added some really beautiful washi tape on the back, and it's just, you know, it makes it look good. And then I added the tab that comes in the kit for Give. This was my inside, the middle page, and I used, again, one of the beautiful messy tags. This is in the yellow Serenity ephemera kit. And I added the word give on there, added some washi tape, 2 different ones, a yellow and then a black. And then on the inside, I typed up these words about sharing resources and what generosity meant. And they didn't look good just on the back. So see, what I did is what did I do, Diane? I made black backgrounds is what I'm trying to say on that. I think it just works, you know, a whole lot better. So that works there. And then this was in the middle, and of course this is Mary. And wasn't Mary a generous person? Because God called her to do something so off the wall, crazy, and she went and did it, didn't she? She became pregnant with Jesus and gave birth to Jesus, even though she was a virgin. So I just put the verse on there because I had it on a piece of sticker paper. And I think she's a generous person and she prospered, right? And then the back of that is the other piece. So I didn't add anything to there. I just had a little tab because I didn't want to cut out the information about this. Is again one of those books that I showed you a couple weeks ago that I got at a resale shop. These gorgeous old art books that are all the Renaissance art, which I've been talking about. I love putting those in my journals. This is Giotto di Stefano, known of Giottino, the Madonna and the Child enthroned with the 2 saints and 8 angels. So I like that there. So on we go to the next verse. And our next verse is 1 Corinthians 13, 6-7. And that's the whole love is patient, love is kind. And we're going to pull something out of there. And I think you're going to find that really interesting. And while I had to take my dogs out when I was making some stuff, I had to show you that these hibiscus just bloomed in my yard. And I realized if I leave them there, they'll be dead. So I brought them in my house, and I wanted to just share them with you because they're so gorgeous. Don't forget, I live in Florida. So of course, hibiscus is blooming. And where I take Lexi on Tuesdays and Fridays, they have a 20-foot tall and about a 40-foot wide couple gardenia bushes. And so they're blooming. And my house smells so wonderful because every Tuesday morning, I bring home about 5 or 6 of the little blossoms and put them in my house. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, keep going, Diane. Move forward. Let's go. I'm excited because I got everything done for verse 6. And I think you're going to really enjoy some of the fun things that I've been able to put together. So at this point, the second signature is complete and stuffed. Okay, let's look at this verse. Which verse? So we finished with Proverbs, and then we went into trust, okay? Trust. And you're going to see that's 1 Corinthians 13, verses 6 and 7. So I'm going to kind of flip around to show you what I learned. Basically, the verse says, love. Well, let's go back. 1 Corinthians 13 is the whole love chapter. So we're pulling out verses 6 and 7 because we're trying to make a point about love, okay? But I would encourage you to go back and read the entire chapter. So let's just pull out verses 6 and 7. Those say, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Okay, so there's my little belly band, and I made another one of the little card books. I think this is working out. I'm going to keep doing this because I go into Google and I ask the question, what does the verse mean? And they always just kind of give you a summary. And so that's perfect when I put it into a small enough font that I can make a little booklet. So basically it says that it's sharing what love is and what love isn't, okay? So for first 13 verse 6, this verse says love does not rejoice in all of those bad things, right? It only rejoices with the truth, and the truth with a capital T, not what we think is truth, but God's truth, okay? And the verse 7 says, now it paints a picture of love's resilience and its capacity for good. So it states that love bears all things, is willing to endure and support others, believes all things, love trusts in God's promises, and sees the best in people rather than judging them. Love hopes in all things. Love remains hopeful, even in difficult situations, believing that God will bring about good outcomes. And love endures all things because it perseveres through hardship. It doesn't give up, continues to love and support others. So that's what trust without wavering. That's what we're kind of picking up on, okay? Let's go back a little step. What I decided to do was, I just thought about, well, I think I know what trust means. So look at this giant page. And aren't you happy I have my flowers in the camera? I'm excited. Thanks. Anyway, okay. Well, if you use the Webster's 1828 dictionary, which I love, the reason I love it is because it gives you definitions of words from a Christian perspective. So that version of the dictionary doesn't occur anymore because they've cut all that out. So you get a much better idea. And look how long it was. It was an entire page that I made into small font just so I could get in here. So some of the things that we say trust. Trust as a noun is confidence, okay? It's a resilience or a resting of our mind on the integrity, veracity, justice, friendship, or other sound principles of another person. He that putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe. Proverbs 29:25. So I didn't add that. That's all in there. So go ahead and use that version of the dictionary. There's a couple others that I thought were really good. Hold on. Of him to whom something is entrusted. I serve him truly. That will put me in trust. Who's he serving? God. Okay. Trust as a verb is to place confidence in, to rely on. We cannot trust those who have deceived us. That was pretty good. Let's see. To believe, to credit, trust me, you look well. To commit to the care of in confidence. Trust your maker with yourself and all your concerns. Don't you just love that? Because like I said, it's really focusing us back on God. Trust as a verb, the intransitive version is to be confident of something present or future, such as, I trust to come to you and speak face to face. That's in 2 John 1:12. We trust we have good conscience, Hebrews 13:18. Trust in the Lord and do good. So all of that. So I printed it on a piece of my Sunshine Serenity kit paper that I had done double-sided. And then I just, folded it over and attached it. You can't see it now, but there was a little tiny piece from a previous page. So I ended up covering it and putting washi tape on it to make it nice and sturdy, okay? Then we added one of our pretty ladies and our boo-boo tape. And then, of course, I made a tall layered tag from my friends Leslie and Donna. And this one, I ended up going into Canva and I added and created some more word art to use. What I'm going to do when I'm done with this journal is I'm going to attach that file into the 10 things to love kit. So if you've bought it, go back in a couple weeks and you should be able, because you already purchased it, you should be able to download that extra page. Okay. So truth, love rejoices with the truth. Love only rejoices about the truth. And then I just layered some, fabric and some other little pieces and some old papers. I love doing this. It's just so much fun. Okay, on the back, I ended up using the got questions information. And that was, what does it mean that love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth? So the got questions one only focuses on 1 Corinthians 13:6. So basically we've said a lot of it. Let's see. Okay. Psalm 1:1-2 offers the proper attitude concerning truth. Okay, so if you don't know that, go back and read it. And that psalm says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of," meaning with the sinners, "nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." So the blessed person, what? Despises evil, but loves God's truth, reflecting upon it constantly. So you see how we keep coming back to, this is about truth, and truth rejoices. Love rejoices in truth. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, now I like this paragraph too. This was really good. True love rejoices in what is right and good. Anything that covers up sin or seeks to justify wrongdoing is the polar opposite of godly love. So love does not sweep sin under the rug. Love does not try to find ways to get away with bad behavior, and it does not put up with injustice. Instead, it treasures truth, celebrates good behavior, and promotes virtue. True love has nothing to hide. Okay, so I thought that one was really good. And then I used one of these new big paper clips that I just got with a little piece of fabric to put that in there. And then I showed you that little pocket. And then I took one of my cards from the Pink Ephemera kit. And again, here's a piece that I created. Love is patience, kindness, and enduring nature. And then on the back, I put our verse, because this whole verse is trust without wavering, right? And so it helps us to see, who do we trust? Why do we trust? What does trust look like, which we just read about, right? Okay, and then I pulled some more words out of some of the things I've been reading to you. Love is stubbornly optimistic. That's verse 7. And just added some little jewels. I had to add some jewels on there. And then this is that meshy stuff, that you use to soapy yourself. It's an old one I've cut up. Okay, and then over here, I found some other really good information. I went to the enduringword.com Bible commentary, and I put this in here. I'm going to read this really, really quick. The links are always in the description, because this talks about that 1 Corinthians, where Paul uses the word love. Which version of love is he using? Now, maybe you've never heard this. Okay, there's 4 different kinds of love. I'm going to tell you what Paul is using, but let's look at them. The first one is eros, E-R-O-S. Well, you can get what that is. That's erotic love. That's just sexual love, okay? That has nothing to do with truth. That has nothing to do with perseverance. That's just erotic love. Okay, then there's storge, which is the second word for love, but that means family love. Like, of course, you love your family, right? You love your friends. So it's a kind of love between a parent, a child, between other family members. And then there's philia, which is the third word, and that's brotherly affection. It's the love of deep friendships and partnerships, okay? It might be described as the highest love of which man, without God's help, is only capable of. So we all are capable of eros love, storge love, and philia love. It's the fourth one that Paul is using in Corinthians, agape. It is the love that loves without changing. It is a self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment. It is a love so great that it can be given to the unlovable or even the unappealing. And when you think of it overall, it is the kind of love that is a sacrificial love. So it's the perfect love, how God loves us, that he sacrificed his son for us. So we're called to love others from an agape perspective. So what I did was printed that, and then this was a little tiny small piece. And then I just folded it over and added a nice piece of paper with a tab. And go over there, and then the last one, the graphics that I made. Love rejoices when truth triumphs, and that's verse 6. Added some washi tape on the end. And then there's a huge article that I'm really going to encourage you to read. And again, it was so long that I made just one of those little carriers for it, okay? Not even going to read it to you. But I want you to look at it. It's from sermons@logos.com. And it really goes deep into what verse 6 and verse 7 mean. And like I said, I wanted to include it in here because I want to remember, like say a year from now, I go back and look in this journal. I actually read all this. I know all this. And so that's how I just put it in there with the little carrier. And then I've got another little paper clip that's, holding it to, this page. Duh, I'll get it yet. And then that's the end. So we have done 6 verses in 2 signatures. And look how chunky it is. And I'm holding it together, right? Let's look at it from this perspective. Woohoo! Okay, we've got 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 4 more verses. All 4 have to fit in my 3rd signature, which they will. Because I'm going to put 4 verses in there, I'm probably not going to do as many, because some of these I'm doing like 5 and 6 things in there for 1 verse, which I'm not going to do in the end. But I hope that I hope that I'm ministering to people. I know that I'm ministering to myself. And so, of course, that's even the best, right? Teachers should teach what they need to learn, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm teaching because I'm reading God's word. I'm trying to understand these ways to love so that I can be a better lover. That doesn't mean sexual lover. Just be a better lover of people, even the unlovely, the people that are very difficult to love, right? So we have made it. Couple more videos and this whole book will be finished. So in the comments, please let me know what you're thinking. Do you know all this stuff? Do any of you actually go and click on the links that I put in there? Is am I wasting my time? And actually go read some of the stuff. Again, I want to reiterate why I cannot put that in my digital kit, because it's all copyright information. I can't copy out of logos.com. I can't copy out of Got Questions and put it in something that I sell because I don't own the copyright. I can give you the link and you can go read it, and I can print those words, which is what I sit there and do, right? And I put those in my journal. So if you're interested in that, you would have to be able to understand how to open a Word document, copy from the link where I'm having you go, put it in the Word document, print it out, and stick it into your journal. So. Well, thank you for persevering through this video. It was probably a little bit longer than I planned, but I did a lot of really fun things. You got to see how to make that really fun pocket that we did. And where did it go, Diane? Okay, wait a minute. Where is that pocket? Here, this one, the book page pocket. We got to make that. And I hope that you have some good Christian books that you can cut up and make really fun, use them for book pages. So as always, please, 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 when you like somebody's videos, you have no idea what you're doing for them. First of all, you're confirming that you are enjoying what they say and do. Number 2, you're really helping me personally with my algorithms on YouTube, because the more likes that you have, the more comments that you get, it moves you up in the algorithm, and then it shows my videos to new people. I will tell you that I know that that's been happening because I've got so many new followers right now. And if you are one of those people, bless you. Thank you for coming along. I hope that I'm ministering to your soul. Please make sure that you're subscribed. And to the next video when we move on to verse number 7 in our 10 Ways to Love series.